There are currently 41 different killers in Dead by Daylight, and in today's video I'm going to be giving you one tip for each different killer. Let me know in the comments if you agree, or if you have anything to elaborate on. Now let's get into the video. Alright, so the first tip I want to give is for Trapper, and it's to kind of be conscious and aware that you're trying to lure survivors into your trapped areas. I feel like once you take the chase outside of where you've already trapped, it's a lot more of a disadvantage for you and more likely to waste your time. Tip number 2 is going to be for the Wraith, and that is to use your increased speed while cloaked to body block windows and pallets. Now, survivors oftentimes don't really switch their brains on when you're trying to get in front of them. Some of them do, but most of the time you're going to be able to body block them, leading to a free injury. Tip number 3 is going to be for the Hillbilly. Now, the Hillbilly thrives about getting into overdrive. You just get faster speed, faster turning rate. It's just overall the best idea to farm overdrive if you can. Tip number 4 is going to be for the Nurse. Now with the Nurse, you're going to want to try and use your first initial blink to blink to the last known location you saw the survivor, because more often than not, good survivors will try and fake you out at corners if you try and predict going past the corner. So you want to blink to the corner first, so that you can see where they've gone, and then use your second blink in order to accurately down them. Tip number 5 is going to be for the Hag. You don't always have to teleport to your trap. You can actually just leave your trap up and survivors will get freaked out and then they'll run back into you, hopefully. Tip number 6 is going to be for the shape Michael Myers, and that is going to be aware, since his rework, he now gets Stalk Decay if it's over 50% and you haven't gotten Evil Incarnate. So just be aware that when you've been stalking more than 50% and it's been longer than 20 seconds, it'll start to decay down to 50%. Tip number 7 is going to be for the Doctor. Now, a fun tech you can do with Doctor, it's called a Dredge tech, and it's where you use the dropped shack pallet and you shock the survivor inside of shack, vaulting the window and then getting an injury before they can vault the pallet again. It's actually a really fun tech to pull off. Tip number 8 is going to be for the Huntress. Now, the tip I have for Huntress is to hit your shots more reliably by waiting till the survivor moves into the middle of your screen before letting your hatchet go, and this works better when you have a fully charged hatchet. Tip number 9 is going to be for Bubba, the Cannibal. Now, the tip with Bubba is you want to time your tokens when you're using your chainsaw sweep, because if you don't time them well enough or you're a little bit inefficient, then you won't get as much distance out of the chainsaw sweep. Tip number 10 is going to be for Freddy or the Nightmare. Now, the best tip I have for him is to use like the downtime into placing like trap pallets or dream pallets so that you are able to set them off while in chase with the survivor. Because more often than not, they're going to be looking behind them a little bit and they can see if you're placing pallets in front of them, so they're going to be more aware. But if they don't see you do that and you're just dream snaring, then they're going to have no clue that you can detonate any pallets near them. Tip number 11 is going to be for the Pig. Now, the Pig has gotten a buff to her ambush, and so I'd say now it's a little bit more reliable to even catch up using her ambush in chase. If they're about to reach like main building, shack or anything like that and you've got the time to do it, it's just better off to get the hit before they make it to anywhere safe. That's my tip for Pig. Now, tip number 12 is for Clown. Now, a cool trick you can do with Clown is if you know a survivor has Decisive Strike, you put a pink bottle down before you pick them up, and then when they DS you, stab you in the back, then you'll be able to slow them down as they get stunned off of you, and you should be able to catch up really quickly to them. Tip number 13 is going to be for the Spirit. Now, for the majority of cases, you want to save your power until you actually find a survivor. Because more often than not, if survivors hear your whoosh 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 noise, they're going to actually try and stealth walk away from generators or whatever they're doing. It's going to be a lot harder to find them at the end if you're using it for distance. Obviously, you can use your power for distance. It's not like a, discriminate use case or anything, but definitely like keep mindful that you should probably wait until you find a survivor or find an injured survivor even better. Alright, tip number 14 is going to be for the Legion. Now, Legion, funny enough, can't actually see scratch marks in Frenzy. I actually ran into someone in solo queue who was playing Legion, and they were really upset by the fact that they couldn't see any scratch marks while in power. So be aware of that, and that you should probably use it once you actually can guarantee a hit on a survivor, otherwise you won't be able to find any. Tip number 15 is going to be for Plague. Now, Plague can get stunned out of a red puke power, but there's an exception to this. Decisive Strike does not knock you out of your power. However, getting pallet stunned, flashlight saved, or just like pallet dropped in general will knock you out of your power, so just be mindful of that. Now, number 16 is going to be for Ghostface. Now, the biggest tip I have for Ghostface is to always try and stalk injured survivors. Like, you hit them and then they run away, but you have your stealth up. Try and stalk them, because you never know. You come back later, you'll be able to fully instant down them after they just don't realize that they've got that stalk on them. It's just a bit more of an efficiency thing with Ghostface. Tip number 17, the Demogorgon. Alright, after going through a tunnel and holding Shred, you actually get Killer Instinct on all of your like portals. And this can be great if you're like trying to defend generators or defend totems. It makes it a really good idea to put those like portals in really like controllable spots, or spots you need information on. Tip number 18 is going to be for Oni. Now, learning the 180 flick on Oni, it's actually a lot easier to do now, but it is a very useful trick and it helps you get hits that you normally wouldn't be able to do. Tip number 19 is going to be for Deathslinger. Now, Deathslinger can actually shoot through a whole lot of holes. He is like the hole master. And I would take the time into learning what you can and can't shoot through. It's a little bit hard sometimes because behavior sometimes updates the game, and some holes now are like blocked up with invisible walls and you kind of have to figure it out each patch, and it's a little annoying. But once you know, there's a couple of holes that you can shoot through, mainly shack windows that have like the wooden borders up on them. You can shoot through those. But yeah, take the time to learn. Number 20 is going to be Pyramid Head, or the Executioner. Now, if you've gooped a survivor in your first chase, or like your first chase with them, you're going to want to try and pick them up instead of sending them off to a cage initially. And this is because the only way that a survivor can cleanse the goop, or like their tormented effect, is to rescue another survivor from a cage. So if you don't have a cage up until when a survivor is like dead on hook, or you need like no anti-tunnel on them, then you're already winning. Right, tip number 21 is for Blight. Now, being patient with your Blight rushes can actually go a long way and stop you from making really costly mistakes on Blight. Being patient and being like thorough, I would say. An example of this would be like, instead of just full sending a Blight rush into an injured survivor, you should do an initial rush to make sure, and maybe try and bait a dead hard out of them. Or if they're going to try some fancy crouch tech or spin, you know, you want to be able to avoid that. And the best way to guarantee a hit with a Blight rush is to wait till your model is inside of the survivor before swinging. You can almost guarantee a hit there. Tip number 22 is for the twins. Now, this is more of like a very generic thing, but Victor cannot see scratch marks at all, and he can see pools of blood that are very bright. So both of them respectively have their best tracking methods. Like Charlotte can see survivors through Victor's Killer Instinct around Victor. So you're going to want to use them interchangeably a lot. Just be mindful of the no scratch marks on Victor. Tip number 23 is going to be for the Trickster. Now, the biggest learning curve I find with Trickster is learning when to pull up your knives during chase. Because you are a 110 killer, you lose a bit of distance when you pull up your knives and start shooting, which is why having open ends in loops and knowing like the distance you need to then start hitting a survivor with a knife, even just one single knife, you know, it's the difference between being a good and a bad Trickster. Tip number 24 is going to be for the Nemesis. Now, the best tip I find with Nemesis is learning how to do his tentacle drag. That is because of how his tentacle hitbox works. It works like a rectangle, it goes up to down. But because it works as a rectangle, it has a time to hit to the ground, you can then move your camera from left to right, and that'll drag the hitbox across as well. So you'll be able to hit survivors that you normally wouldn't hit if you start your tentacle hit around a corner. And you should be able to tag the survivor with the very little tip of the hitbox. Right, the next tip, the Cenobite, which is tip number 25. That is to understand box logic. Box logic is a little bit of a funky bit of, I guess, math, or like positional math. But the box basically spawns the furthest away from the survivors and you at the same time. So if you understand where the survivors spawn or where they are relative to when the box respawns, you'll be able to find the box on a pretty good educated guess, and it's pretty easy to hear as well. Tip number 26 for the artist. Now, this is going to be learning the slingshot technique, and that is where you displace crows certain distances away from each other in order to hit a survivor with a crow and then follow up with an immediate hit of damage. And there's a trick to this, because getting hit with a crow gives survivors crow immunity for a brief period of time, and that's just to stop like double placing crows and then insta-downing people. The best trick I find is that once you place your first crow, you wait until the meter goes all the way to the beak of like the crow power icon before you then start placing another one. And this can be like when you start walking, so you don't use your power. And this almost guarantees, in 99% of my cases, almost guarantees a hit. Tip number 27 is going to be for the Onryō or Sadako. Now this is going to be with her passive phasing. Now this is something that she gets when she is de-manifested. And so she's like phasing in and out of reality. You actually see that she becomes invisible for a brief period of time. There's an add-on that actually increases this period of time, so it's a little bit longer. But it's actually can throw off survivors really easily if you can time it right. When you de-manifest and then manifest, you might be able to cut off survivors that are looking at a check spot. And so you can gain a little bit of distance on that and catch a couple of survivors off. It's a pretty good trick. Tip number 28 is going to be for the Dredge. Now, teleporting to your Remnant gives you Nightfall charges, but also teleporting to your Remnant in Nightfall will give you Killer Instinct on survivors, which can be a helpful thing to find and track survivors in Nightfall. You're probably never going to use it, but it's a nice little bit of kit to know. Tip number 25 is going to be for Wesker. Now, with Wesker, a fun mind game you can do is to use your Virtual Bound ability. It looks eerily similar to how you break a pallet, so you can use this to bait survivors into running away from a pallet when you're really just charging up your power. Tip number 30 is going to be for the Knight. Now, the Knight, similar to the Clown, I'd say, is really good at stopping a decisive strike from happening. If you place a guard right before you pick up a survivor that you think has decisive strike and they hit you with it, they almost immediately get found by your guard and then downed. Especially if you use Assassin, like it's almost impossible, but it's a very strong counter to decisive strike. Tip number 31 is going to be for the Skull Merchant. Now, with the Skull Merchant, you want to learn how to instant down survivors using your claw traps. So you can see if they have 2 out of the 3 claw traps active. If you put a third one on them, they become broken or injured. So if you learn that timing, you can almost guarantee like a 2-tap. It's pretty brutal. All right, tip number 32 is going to be for the Singularity, and this is just going to be about your biopod placement. I see a lot of the time Singularities, they'll put their biopods like in really like narrow spots, like with no line of sight, only just to get like no value out of them. Especially like in good maps like with lots of trees, you put your pods up in the trees and you get like a very good, like even 360 camera around a tree. It's crazy. You get really good coverage. Tip number 33 is going to be for the Xenomorph. Now, if you get broken out of crawler mode, if you go into the tunnels, you can get your crawler mode back really quickly if you do like a little wiggle down there. Alright, tip number 34 is going to be for Chucky, or the good guy, and his biggest strength is probably going to be his third-person camera. You can use that to kind of reverse mind game survivors who are using check spots, and you can even mind game using it. So like if you hold a corner before chasing a survivor and you can see them and they're waiting, and then they might run back into you, and you can use that as a very helpful technique. Tip number 35 is going to be for the Unknown. Now, you can use the UVX to delay your next teleport. As you can see, when your teleport happens, these yellow misty bars on the side of your camera will start to rise as your teleport is priming. If you tap your power, your UVX power, that will bring it down and delay that power, and you can put a teleport in a more advantageous spot if you really want to. Tip number 36, going to be for the Lich or Vecna, not the Stranger Things one, the D&D Vecna. This is if you spawn the Flight of the Damned, which is your skeleton's power, right on top. Like the hitbox has to be like dead on to the survivor. They virtually have no reaction time to it because the hitbox spawns right on top of them, dealing almost instant damage to them. It's a very neat trick to do. It's called like the Insta Skeletons tech. Someone coined it. But yeah, very good trick to learn on Vecna. Tip number 37, and it's going to be for the Dark Lord. Now this, kind of more of like a general playstyle thing, but you want to leave pallets on the map downed so that you can teleport to them as your bat form later on. And especially on like very big maps, like Swamp, it could be like there's like literally nowhere to teleport to, like window-wise, apart from like main building and shack. Maybe even like the 2-story building, but yeah, using having some down pallets to teleport to helps a lot when you're like map traversal wise, because otherwise it's very slow. Even like in bat form, it's pretty slow. Next up, we have tip number 38, which is going to be for the Houndmaster. Now, the Houndmaster has surprisingly good map traversal with her search command. I'd argue even her search command is probably even better than her chase command, just based on like bugginess level and value. But yeah, you have incredible map traversal as Houndmaster, and you should definitely use it more than you should, even in chase. Tip number 39, which is going to be for the Ghoul. Everyone's favorite killer, the Ghoul. Vaulting a window using your Kagune Leap counts as a normal vault. So that way, perks like Bamboozle and all vaulting perks, they count towards your Kagune Leap. It's not like a special action that you take. So keep that in mind. But obviously, Kaneki has a add-on, the Centipede add-on that blocks the window when you Cargo leap, so you can toss it up between Bamboozle and that, but Bamboozle also works if you're not doing a Cargo leap as well. Tip number 40 is going to be for Springtrap or the Animatronic. Now, I would say learning when to reclaim your axe if you've left it on the ground after throwing it is probably the best way to catch up to a survivor before you realize you need to then use your axe to hit a survivor over a window and a pallet. Is probably the biggest learning curve. Tip number 41 is the Krasue, and it's kind of similar to Chucky, how she has a very, very strong third person. It's like an overhead third person camera, and you definitely want to use that to your advantage because it's very strong. You can see over a lot of objects, including like a lot of rocks. You can see over the top of them, and for survivors hiding, it's just like really easy to find them.